Hello everyone. Last time we have explained about the pond ecosystem. Today we'll explain the another type of aquatic ecosystem, that is marine ecosystems. Marine ecosystems mainly contains a saline or salty water. Marine ecosystems of India includes Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, and Indian Ocean. So these are the three main regions of the sea water which are present around the India, and these are namely Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, and Indian Ocean. In coastal areas, sea is shallow at the shore region and then deep inside. So we can explain it as a sea coast and the deep seas. So coastal area having shallow region at the seashore, and as we pass or move inward in the sea, the depth of the sea increasing and reaches up to the deep sea region. So the coastal region, that is inshore, offshore, and the deep seas. So we can differentiate the sea water with the consideration of the depth, that is a shallow waters of the seashore, that is inshore, then just in front is offshore, and the further next is the deep sea where the depth of the sea is much more. So coastal area, sea is shallow at the seashore, then deep inside, and both has different ecosystems. So sea coast and the deep sea will have a different type of ecosystems, or the composition or the biotic fauna of the seashore region and deep sea region are different. So both are having different ecosystems. Algae and seaweeds are the producers. So irrespective of a species or a type of algae, the algae and the seaweeds forms the producer category or the aquatic plants which serves as producers. There are millions of zooplanktons, means small microscopic uh, aquatic invertebrates representing zooplanktons feeding onto the phytoplanktons. So there are millions of zooplanktons and a large number of invertebrates on which fish live. So most of the species of the fishes, which are the main uh, intention of the human being from the different aquatic resources, might be freshwater, brackish water, or marine water aquatic resources. For the mankind, the fish is very important for the food purpose, and that's why the fish species which are occurring in the sea water, either in a inshore region or offshore or in a deep sea region, forms the food, a best protein rich food for the human being, and thus the large quantity of zooplanktons which forms the food for the consumption of the uh, fishes. So fish will get their feed from the large quantity of the zooplanktons which are consumed by the fish in the seawater, and fish is the food of crocodiles and the marine animals. So different type of carnivore animals like crocodile and other carnivore type of fishes which consume the fish. Then coral reefs are also rich in species. Silt is carried out to the sea due to deforestation of the mangroves. So silt, that is a soil material, can pass from the terrestrial zone into the seawater due to the deforestation or the cutting of the mangroves. The silt is deposited on the coral reefs and thus it dies. So the coral reefs are also rich in a species and are also found in the sea water on the bottom of the sea water, but they get buried under the silt, which is carried from the estuarine regions into the sea. So the silt is deposited on the coral reefs and thus coral reef dies. Fishermen collect fish from the sea for their livelihood, or fishermen's catching or collecting the fish from the seawater for the human consumption or as a profession or as a earning source. So fishermen collecting the fish from the sea water or marine ecosystem. Nowadays, due to intensive fishing or excessive fishing or catching of the fish with the use of giant nets, giant means large sized nets, and the mechanized boats. Mechanized boats means these are the boats which are used for the catching of the fish by using these giant nets or the large nets. These boats are mechanized, means they are provided with a machinery or mounted with a motor engine. So large sized mechanized boats and the giant nets are used by the modern fishermen for the catching of the fish, and thus fish catch in the Indian Ocean has dropped significantly. This is because of excessive fishing or catching of the fish from the sea water with the use of giant nets and the mechanized boats. So, due to the availability of the um, suitable or good type of equipments for the catching of the fish can be caught on a large quantity, and that's why the quantity of the fish has been reduced in the seawater significantly. Then we'll explain the seashore ecosystem. Seashore and the beaches are rocky, sandy, sail covered, or muddy. So, when we compare the coastal area or a shallow water of the sea representing seashore or the beaches, they are either rocky or sandy or sail covered or may covered with a mud, and depending on the nature of beach there are different species. There are different species present on the beach region or the shallow waters of the sea coast, like different crabs. Different crabs are present which live in sand holes, and the various type of aquatic birds feeding on their prey by probing or inserting their beak in the sand or mud on the seashore. So we can observe the seashore ecosystem where it is covered by either a rocky, sandy, or shale covered or muddy substratum, and depending on the nature of beach, there are different species. So, different crabs are present uh, along the sea beaches which are living in the sand holes, and the various type of aquatic birds which are feeding on their prey like fish or mollusk, whatever which reaches to the seashore, that are captured by the number of aquatic birds, or they can probe or insert their beak in the sand, and from where they can collect their prey or food organism from the sand or mud on the seashore. Fishermen catch different species of the fishes. So there are different type of fish organisms present in the sea water. We know there are certain varieties of the good quality of the fishes like bangda, surmai, pomfret. So there are some important species of the even prawns, crabs, which are edible, and that can be caught by the fishermen from the sea region or seashore or from the seas. And due to overfishing, reduced fish quantity in last 1 or 2 decades. So the reduction in the quantity of the fish in the sea water is due to overfishing in a last 1 or 2 decades. Then use of aquatic ecosystems. Use of aquatic systems. So there are various uses, or the aquatic ecosystems can be used for various purposes, such as the aquatic ecosystems provides us clean water for drinking and other domestic uses. So whatever the freshwater aquatic resources, that is inland aquatic water resources such as rivers, streams, lakes, ponds, jhels. So these are the dams. These are the inland freshwater resources that are also uh, explained, or that are also called as the freshwater ecosystems. And these aquatic ecosystems, freshwater aquatic ecosystems, providing us a clean water for the drinking and other domestic uses. Secondly, essential for agriculture and industries. So, the water from rivers, lakes, ponds, or the dams or the irrigation canals, we can have the water for irrigation purpose or agricultural irrigation purpose, and also for the industries. Then thirdly, variety of fish species of the uh, different aquatic water resources and the crabs uh, can be obtained for the human consumption and also for the production of the different type of byproducts. So fishing of the fish or catching of the fish and crabs for the human feeding and the byproducts. So one can have uh, the large quantity of fish or other aquatic organisms which are edible, that can be caught or that are provided or supplied by the aquatic ecosystems, that is freshwater, brackish water and marine water aquatic ecosystems, or the water resources which have a wealth of large quantity or large number of different fishery animals or the organisms which are useful for the human consumption, and even to get the different type of byproducts which can be produced or obtained by using the fish or the aquatic organisms caught. So there are variety of byproducts, maybe fish meal, fish flour, fish guano, fish manure, prawn manure, etc. There are several type of byproducts can be obtained from the fishes. And then next one is use of dams for electric power production. So aquatic ecosystems can be used for the production of electricity or the power. Such type of products, just we can see, you just go to the Bhandardara dam, where there is uh, a power plant, electric power plant. So for the uh, movement of the turbines, uh, the water is used, the dam water is used for the uh, cyclic movements of the turbines so as to generate the electric power. So, use of dams for the electric power or electricity production, one can use these aquatic ecosystems. Then we'll explain little bit regarding the threats of the aquatic ecosystems. Means what type of threats uh, are it can be found with respect to the aquatic ecosystems. So the first and important threat to the aquatic ecosystem is the water pollution. So due to the domestic sewage, industrial effluents, municipal drainages, then dumping of solid waste destroyed natural water resources. So these are the different sources of the waste which can be drawn or released into the nearby aquatic water bodies, and thus water of these aquatic resources get polluted. So water pollution due to domestic sewage, then industrial effluents or the drainages from the MIDCs, then municipal drainage, so the large cities from where the drainages are drawn or released into the nearby river or sea water or estuary, whatever the natural water resource available are near to the towns or cities or metropolitan cities get polluted due to the release of the domestic sewage, then industrial effluents, municipal drainages, which are carrying large quantity of either organic waste, inorganic waste, toxicants or a different type of toxic pollutants, even pathogens which are simply released into the nearby water resource, and this have led the problem of water pollution. So this is a great threat or a danger for the uh, available natural water resources. That is water pollution due to the domestic sewage, industrial effluents, municipal drainages, dumping of solid waste. We know there is a great problem for, of the disposal of the solid waste from the towns or cities, and so whatever the waste obtained from the cities and towns that are simply collected and carried to the uh, just outside to the cities or towns and simply dump onto the land, and which have destroyed the natural water resources. So the water pollution is a great threat to the uh, available natural water resources. Then secondly, eutrophication of the ponds reduce number of flora and fauna. So eutrophication means this is again a type of uh, harmful activity. Eutrophication is a very dangerous or harmful activity to the ponds, and this happens due to the increased quantity of organic waste or the nutrients in the pond, and this will result into the increase in productivity of the pond. So due to increased productivity of the pond due to the large quantity of nutrients may occur in the eutrophic ponds, and this will increase first the aquatic flora, then aquatic fauna, and in a final stage, what happens due to the increased number of aquatic flora and fauna, the nutrients which are simply taken up, and the undesired fauna or the weeds, undesired flora and fauna will increase in the pond, and this will destroy the pond completely because of formation of algal blooms on the surface of the pond. This will prevent the penetration of the sunlight and ultimately will stop the process of photosynthesis of the aquatic plants which are present below. So, due to the floating cover of the algal blooms or undesired flora or a weed in the form of algal blooms on the surface of the pond will prevent the penetration of the sunlight and will stop the process of photosynthesis of the aquatic plants and ultimately will reduce the flora and uh, after which there is a increased number of the fauna or the organic organism, and this will increase the biological oxygen demand and thus reducing the dissolved oxygen contents of the pond. So ultimately the eutrophication of the pond will reduce the flora and fauna of the pond water. Then increased human diseases. The another threat, third important threat uh, to the natural water resources, that is increased human diseases. So due to the release or drainages of the different type of waste, maybe organic waste, inorganic waste, or domestic sewage, industrial effluents carrying many toxic chemicals, then municipal drainages which are carrying the different type of disease causing agents, and this will lead to the contamination or the pollution of the drinking water sources, and ultimately this will increase the human diseases. So such water which have been contaminated or polluted due to the different waste, the water, drinking water of the aquatic water resources or freshwater resources will not remain clear or pure, but that simply get contaminated and containing large quantity of the disease causing agents or the pathogens, and this will ultimately increase the human diseases and thus needs their proper conservation. So, what is important for the protection of these available water resources, natural water resources, may be fresh water, saline water, or marine water resources, will have to protect or will have to conserve these aquatic resources for the future use or utilization. So, if the water get polluted, that will not be that will not remain uh, better for the further use, either for drinking purpose, irrigation purpose, navigation purpose. So, so whatever the purposes or whatever the uses of the water, we cannot get its advantage if the we are destroying all these water resources either due to the pollution or due to the eutrophication or due to just the release of the waste in the water resources and contaminating or polluting the water resources will have its boomerang effect, and that will certainly become harmful to the mankind, and that's why it is the essential step that should followed immediately for the proper conservation of these natural aquatic water resources. So thus needs their proper conservation. So conservation of the aquatic ecosystem for sustainable means continuous. For sustainable use of the aquatic ecosystem, water pollution must be avoided. So we'll have to avoid the water pollution. So we'll have to follow certain activities strictly. Means we'll have to prohibit or we'll have to follow the certain activities strictly for the protection or conservation of these water resources so that we can use them in a future. So, for the sustainable use of aquatic ecosystem, water pollution must be avoided. Then, big dams change the natural uh, aquatic ecosystems from flowing water to the static ecosystem, which destroys its natural biodiversity. So, simply a transformation of the river, for example, the rivers or the streams, which can be transformed into the big dams, and this will result into a change of the natural aquatic resource or the ecosystem. So big dams change the nature of aquatic system. Big dams changing the nature of aquatic ecosystem from flowing water to static water or flowing water to static or stagnant ecosystem, and which destroys its natural biodiversity. So ultimately, the natural biodiversity uh, will be changed. Then thirdly, wetland ecosystem need a production. Wetland ecosystem need protection by including them in either national parks or sanctuaries. So wetland ecosystems also needs the protection, and we can include these wetland ecosystems either in a national parks or the sanctuaries or wildlife sanctuaries. So we can transform the wetlands into either national parks or the sanctuaries, and this is the step can be followed for the protection of the wetland ecosystems. Then endangered species like mercer can be protected due to the due to the implementation of some strict laws or the rules, and some of the ecosystems, maybe the forest ecosystem, then aquatic ecosystems or wetland ecosystems can be protected by laws, and there should be strict implementation of the rules and regulations. So, some rules or the regulations can be made uh, by the government authorities for the conservation of these aquatic ecosystems and can be transformed into the national parks or the sanctuaries, and ultimately will protect the endangered species like mahseer uh, with the implementation of the some sort of conservation tool. So this is what about the conservation of the aquatic ecosystem. Then structure of ecosystem, structure and composition of the ecosystem, structure and composition of ecosystem, structure and composition of ecosystem. So we know already, we have explained several times that any ecosystem may be terrestrial or aquatic ecosystem having main two components, that is biotic and abiotic components. So structure and composition of ecosystem uh, is containing mainly two components, and these are abiotic and abiotic or non-living, and biotic or a living components. So ecosystem is composed of two components, mainly biotic and abiotic components. Abiotic or non-living components, these are non-living factors of the environment. Abiotic or non-living components are the non-living factors of the environment. Abiotic factors includes inorganic substances such as phosphorus, sulfur, carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, etc. So these are the some abiotic factors or the inorganic substances. Then water, soil, air, light, temperature, minerals, climate, pressure, etc. are the important and essential abiotic factors. So these are the abiotic factors or non-living components of the environment. Then biotic or living factors, these are plants, animals, including human beings and the microorganisms. Plants, animals, including human being and the microorganism that will form a biotic component or the living factors of the environment. So in any type of ecosystem, there are these two type of components of the factors are present in the ecosystem. That is biotic and abiotic components. Biotic components, that is the plants, they are the green plants, certain bacteria and algae can synthesize their own food with the help of chlorophyll in presence of sunlight, and they are called as autotrophs or the producers. So plants are the producers. These are the green plants may occur or they are found either in a terrestrial ecosystems or the aquatic ecosystems. So whatever the plants, green plants, capable of process of photosynthesis, and these are present as a biotic component of the ecosystem. So plants are the green plants, certain bacteria and algae which can synthesize their own food with the help of a pigment, green pigment called as chlorophyll in presence of sunlight or a process of photosynthesis, and thus are called as autotrophs or the producers. Then animals, second category of the biotic components, that is animals. Animals cannot produce their food but depends on plants and other organisms to obtain their food, and hence these are called as heterotrophs or the consumers. So animals are heterotrophs which are unable or they cannot produce their food themselves, but they are dependent on plants and other organisms for their food, and hence are called as heterotrophs or simply consumers. Animals can feed on green plants are called as primary consumers or herbivores. For example, deer, cow, giraffe, these are the herbivores and feeding on the plant materials. Animals can feed on green plants. Animals can feed on green plants and are thus called as primary consumers or herbivores. Animals can feeding on green plants and are called as primary consumers or herbivores. So these are the examples. Deer, cow, giraffe are the herbivores feeding on the plants. Then organisms which feed on the herbivores are called as secondary consumers or the carnivores. For example, lion, frog, snakes, etc. So these are the secondary consumers or can be called as carnivores because these are feeding on to the herbivores or the other organisms. Then the organisms which consume secondary consumers are called as tertiary consumers. For example, eagle, which are feeding on to the snake. So snake is a carnivore and it serves as a secondary consumer or a carnivore, but can be consumed or eaten up by the eagle called as tertiary consumers or a secondary carnivore. So organisms which consume both plants and animals are called as omnivores, and there are certain animals or organisms which are feeding both plants and animals are called as omnivores. For example, deer. Then microbes or the microorganisms, they are also called as the decomposers because they are responsible for decomposition of dead organic matter. So whatever the dead and decaying organic matter composed of or of the plant and animal origin that are simply decomposed or transformed into harmless or materials through the process of decomposition is called as decomposition, and this is done by the microorganisms like bacteria and fungi. So, structure and composition of the ecosystem mainly containing these abiotic and biotic factors, and which are interdependent with one another, or there is a kind of interaction between biotic and abiotic factors. So there is a continuous there is a continuous transformation of abiotic factors into biotic factors, and biotic factors back into a abiotic factor. So this is a kind of cycle or a continuous or a regular process happening in the any ecosystem, that is transformation of abiotic to biotic and biotic to abiotic factors. So this is uh, occurring normally or happening normally in the ecosystem and performing a particular biological function of the ecosystem. So, biotic factors containing plants, animals, and the microorganisms, and many uh, inorganic substances such as phosphorus, sulfur, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, water, soil, air, light, temperature, minerals, climate or pressure, etc. These are the abiotic factors and are very important for the growth and survival of the living organisms or the biotic factors of the ecosystem. So this is the image representing structure of ecosystem. In a uh, left side diagram, in a left side diagram or image, we can see the generated scheme of nutritional relationships among different biotic components of an ecosystem. So there is a nutritional relationship found among the different biotic components of an ecosystem. So in a left hand side diagram or image, we can see the sun from the top side. From the left corner we can see the sun. So solar radiations or the solar energy or sunlight is utilized by the plants for the process of photosynthesis and producing the carbohydrates, and these plants are consumed by the herbivore like a rabbit. For example, in a figure we can see there is a rabbit which is feeding onto the plants. So it serves as a primary consumer or a herbivore. Then just next or just right to the rabbit, there is a lion representing a carnivore feeding onto the rabbit, or a secondary or tertiary consumer. And just again right to the lion, there is a man, human, which serves as an omnivore feeding on both plants as well as a rabbit. So the rabbit or the plants, these are the plants are the source of food for the human being, and even rabbit can also a source of the food for the human being. So man can eat or consume uh, different materials which are derived from the plants, or even he can consume, the human or the man can consume the uh, certain animals or the herbivores which are feeding onto the plants. Again, in a lower part below we can see there is a excretion, that is the release of waste by either herbivore or carnivore or the omnivore, and whatever the excreta or the undigested matter that is uh, decomposed and again releasing the different components or the abiotic factors in the soil, and these nutrients or the uh, waste components or which are getting decomposed or simplified into the different minerals or the nutrients, organic or inorganic waste or the nutrients in the soil, which can then be used by the plants for the energy need, or for the growth of plants there requires these nutrients. So simply these nutrients again taken up through the roots by the plants and are used for the growth of the plants. So in a left hand side figure we can see the generated scheme of nutritional relationships among the different biotic components of an ecosystem, that is representing producers, herbivores, carnivores, and the top carnivores are the autotrophs and heterotrophs, or the plants and different animals, producers and different animals may serve as either herbivores or consumers, or primary consumers or secondary consumers, or the primary or secondary carnivores or omnivores uh, from the uh, ecosystem. So this is a uh, nutritional relationship, the diagram showing nutritional relationships among the biotic components or the biotic factors or the different organisms of an ecosystem, and this we can explain as a either a terrestrial ecosystem or a grassland ecosystem. In a figure on the right hand side, we can see the grassland ecosystem. So, from the surface of the land, top side, above the surface of the land, we can see the herbivores and a tiger representing carnivore. So, producers, these are lying along the surface of the land representing the plants from the surface of the land, and they are producers, and herbivores like cattle or deers which are feeding onto the plants, and these herbivores that like deers or cattle which can be consumed by the tiger like carnivore. Then um, in a soil layer, we can see the different decomposers. In a lower part of the image, we can see the different type of decomposers, maybe worms, some sort of aquatic invertebrates, or fungus, uh, fungi, different type of bacteria, and worm, different type of nematodes, which are uh, occurring in the soil layer, and they serve as a decomposer and are useful for the transformation of dead and decaying organic matter or the material into the different abiotic factors, that is organic and inorganic constituents of the materials of the either plant or the animals. So whatever the components of the uh, plants and animals after death, which can be decomposed by the decomposers and are then transformed into the abiotic factors, maybe in the form of nutrients, organic or inorganic nutrients, minerals, etc. So this is the figure showing the grassland ecosystem. So today we'll stop here. Next time we'll continue with the food chain. So today we'll stop here. Thank you.